Part 6. When grief becomes a teacher, not a prison. Grief may crack your heart open, but from that space, the light of wisdom can enter. By now, you may have realized something. Grief is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a companion, silent, honest, and often misunderstood. It comes not to destroy us, but to show us the truth. That everything we love is temporary. That nothing in this world, no matter how dear, can be held forever. And that because of this, every moment is infinitely precious. The Buddha didn't offer us a life without sorrow. He offered us a path through it, a path walked with presence, wisdom, and compassion. 1. Loss is universal. We all experience it. No one is exempt. Accepting this truth is not pessimism, it's freedom. When we stop resisting impermanence, we begin to live more fully. 2. Pain is natural, but suffering is optional. Grief will come. But we don't need to turn it into endless suffering through clinging, guilt, or resistance. With mindfulness, we learn to hold pain gently. 3. Prepare with presence. Remembering that we will lose the people we love someday isn't morbid, it's wise. It inspires us to live with more attention, kindness, and appreciation now. 4. Become a beautiful memory. We can't control when we leave or when others leave us. But we can choose to be a light in their life while we're here. That's how we create peace for them and for ourselves. 5. Don't let love become a chain. Honor your loved ones not by staying in sorrow, but by transforming their memory into compassion, gratitude, and acts of kindness in the world. After my grandfather died, I used to visit his chair often. I'd sit there, thinking I was connecting with his spirit. But one day, I realized he's not in the chair. He's in the way I serve my parents' tea. He's in the stories I tell with warmth. He's in the patience I show when someone is struggling. Grief turned into gratitude. And gratitude turned into action. And action became love reborn. As you move forward, here is a simple daily intention. Today, I remember those I've lost. I carry them not as pain, but as purpose. I live gently, love deeply, and walk lightly, knowing that life is short, but beautiful. Repeat it each morning if it helps. Let it guide your breath, your thoughts, your steps. Maybe the most sacred gift grief gives us is the reminder to begin again. To forgive. To let go. To tell people we love them. To be kind for no reason. To stop waiting for tomorrow and truly live today. Because one day, we'll be the memory. Let's make it a good one. Part 7. Turning grief into compassion. Your new life begins here. When you have suffered deeply, you don't just walk through life anymore, you walk with purpose. Grief changes you. That's not up for debate. But the question is, what will it change you into? A closed heart, bitter and afraid to love again? Or a deeper soul, one who knows what truly matters, and now lives with eyes wide open? The Buddha taught that suffering can be either a wall or a doorway. It can make you shrink, or it can expand your capacity to love and understand the pain of others. The choice is yours. When I lost my closest friend, I shut down for months. I couldn't teach, couldn't write, couldn't even sit in silence without hearing his laughter in the background of my thoughts. But something changed when I began volunteering at a hospice. I met people who were just days or weeks from death, and yet, many of them weren't afraid. They were grateful. Reflective, tender. And I realized grief had opened in me a new kind of empathy. I could sit with others in their sadness, not to fix it, but simply to be with it. And in that presence, I began to heal. Not by avoiding my pain, but by walking with others through theirs. This is how grief becomes compassion. In Mahayana Buddhism, there is the concept of the Bodhisattva, the one who chooses to return again and again, not for personal liberation, but to help all beings cross the ocean of suffering. And you don't need to be a monk to walk this path. If you've ever comforted someone in their loss because you understood that pain, chosen kindness over judgment, or stayed up late just to listen to someone cry, then you are already walking the Bodhisattva's path. Your pain has turned into a bridge. And now, others can walk across it toward their own healing. There is a story of a woman who lost her husband in a tragic accident. For months, she was consumed by grief. But then one day, she made a choice. Instead of living alone in sorrow, she opened her home to young women escaping domestic violence. Her house became a safe space. Her kitchen became a place for storytelling and healing. And her pain became the soil from which a garden of compassion grew. When asked why she did it, she simply said, "I couldn't bring him back, but I could bring meaning to his absence." That's how grief transforms into purpose. Here are a few simple ways to honor your grief while growing from it. 1. Create a compassion ritual in their name. Light a candle each week and do one kind act in honor of the person you lost. Let their love ripple outward. 2. Help someone going through what you survived. Even just listening without advice can be a healing balm. Your presence is the medicine. 3. Live as they would want you to. Ask yourself, if they could see me now, what would they smile at? What would make them proud? Then go do that. Grief is not the end of your story. It's a new chapter, quiet, painful, and sacred. You are not here just to survive. You are here to love, to serve, and to awaken. Let your loss teach you softness. Let it slow you down. Let it deepen your gaze and expand your heart. Because in this wounded tenderness, you are becoming the very thing the world needs most. A human being who has been broken open and chose love anyway. Part 8. Relearning joy, gently coming back to life. After the longest night, there comes a quiet dawn. You are allowed to feel the sun again. There comes a moment in every grief journey when something unexpected happens. You laugh. Maybe just a little. Maybe just for a second. And then you stop and ask yourself, is this okay? Is it okay to feel joy again? To smile while still missing them? To look forward to something, anything, when just yesterday you felt like you would never breathe fully again? Yes. Not only is it okay, it's necessary. Because joy is not the opposite of grief. Joy is a sign that love has survived the storm. I remember walking through a park months after my friend's funeral. I saw a child chasing a butterfly, laughing uncontrollably. And without warning, I smiled. Then came the guilt. How can I smile while he's gone? But the answer came just as quickly. He would have wanted me to. That small smile was the beginning of my return, not to who I was before the loss, but to someone wiser, someone softer, someone more present. Because when you've stood in the fire and lived, even the smallest breeze feels like a miracle. The Buddha never said to abandon happiness. He taught us to abandon craving and delusion, not joy. In fact, joy that comes from mindfulness is a spiritual force. It's called piti, the serene, radiant joy that arises when we are fully present and at peace with what is. After grief, joy returns like spring after winter. You can't force it. You can only create the conditions for it to bloom. Let yourself sit in nature. Let yourself feel the breeze again. Laugh with someone without apologizing for it. Eat something you love slowly. Write a letter to your loved one telling them you're okay. This is not betrayal. This is blossoming. Here are a few practices to help joy re-enter your world after loss. 1. The yes and practice. Instead of choosing between sadness or happiness, allow both. Say, yes, I miss them. And I'm also grateful for this warm cup of tea. This teaches your heart to expand instead of divide. 2. Joy journaling. Each night, write down one small moment that made you smile, even if it was fleeting. Over time, your mind will remember how to notice beauty again. 3. Conscious celebration. On their birthday or anniversary, do something joyful in their memory. Plant a tree, cook their favorite meal, or simply sit under the stars and say, thank you. You are not leaving them behind by living. You are carrying them forward through how you love, how you serve, how you smile again. Their story continues through you. So go ahead and dance again. Go ahead and create something. Go ahead and fall in love with this life, not despite your grief, but because of it. You have known what it means to lose. Now you are learning what it means to live, with depth, with tenderness, with eyes that truly see. Grief carved space in your heart. Let that space now become home to light. You are not betraying the past. You are honoring it by allowing the beauty of this present moment to matter, too. So when the wind touches your face, when a bird sings outside your window, when someone makes you laugh unexpectedly, don't turn away. That is life saying, you're still here. And it's still beautiful. May your sorrow deepen your compassion. May your memories become blessings. And may your return to joy be gentle, sacred, and true. Part 9. Living with Wisdom, when impermanence becomes your teacher. The person you lost is no longer here to remind you how short life is, so now it's your responsibility to remember. After the waves of sorrow have calmed, after the tears have dried on your pillow, there comes a stillness. And in that stillness, if you are brave enough to listen, you may hear a question arise from the quiet. Now that I know how fragile life is, how will I live differently? This is where grief becomes wisdom. Not just a scar, but a lantern. The Buddha taught that understanding impermanence is the gateway to true peace. All compounded things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence. For many, these words feel cold, like surrendering to something sad. But when you've faced real grief, you begin to see, impermanence isn't cruel, it's clarifying. It strips away the noise. It humbles the ego. It reveals what really matters. After the death of someone close to me, I found myself suddenly losing interest in things I used to chase: status, approval, perfection. What once felt urgent became irrelevant. Instead, I began to crave different things. Silence. Simplicity. Time with loved ones. Long walks. Honest conversations. I started asking new questions. What do I really want to give my time to? Who do I want to become before I, too, return to the earth? In a strange and sacred way, the loss gave me clarity that years of reading couldn't. The first step in the Noble Eightfold Path is right view, seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. When you truly internalize impermanence, your entire life shifts. You stop procrastinating on healing broken relationships. You stop clinging to resentment like a shield. You speak your truth more gently and more often. You forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Grief gave you that sight. Don't waste it. This might sound strange, but I've been using a practice called the death clock for years. Each morning, I look at a small reminder that says, one day less. It's not morbid. It's motivating. That little whisper reminds me to call my parents today, not next week. To stop scrolling when someone's speaking to me. To speak from the heart, not the habit. Because I've lost people I loved. And I refuse to live on autopilot ever again. Here are a few mindful ways to turn post-grief wisdom into powerful living. 1. Speak before it's too late. Don't wait for funerals to express love. Say it now. Write the letter now. Hug them now. 2. Drop what doesn't matter. Old grudges? Ego battles? Unfinished dramas? Let them go. If death doesn't care about them, why should you? 3. Simplify your days. Create space for what nourishes you. Walk more. Breathe more. Talk less, but mean every word. 4. Be who you want to remember. When others lose you, what legacy of presence, kindness, or honesty will you leave behind? You've stared into the eyes of impermanence. You've wept over it. You've survived it. Now let it become your compass. Let it guide your choices. Let it shape your relationships. Let it remind you, again and again, that this moment, right now, is your life. So don't waste it. Take the grief. Take the wisdom. And walk forward with soft steps and strong purpose. Because now you know. What's temporary is also what's most sacred. Part 10, the final lesson, grief is the gateway to a more awake life. You thought grief broke you. But maybe it broke you open. You began this journey in the dark. A wound. A loss. A silence so loud it shattered your sense of normal. You came with questions, maybe even with anger. And yet, somehow, through the stillness, the tears, the reflections, you are not the same person you were when you started. You are softer now. Wiser. More open to life, and more understanding of death. You've come to see grief not as the end of the story, but as the beginning of a new way of being. Let's pause and reflect on the truths you now carry. 1. Impermanence is real. Everything you love will change or fade. This is not cruelty, it is the very fabric of life. Knowing this sets you free to cherish the now. 2. You are allowed to feel. Pain is not a flaw. It's not spiritual failure. It's human. And feeling deeply means you have loved deeply. That's beautiful. 3. Healing comes from presence, not escape. You cannot outrun grief. But you can sit with it, breathe with it, and let it walk beside you until one day it walks a little behind you instead of in front. 4. Love is stronger than death. They may be gone in body, but what they awakened in you remains. That love becomes how you speak, how you care, how you live. 5. You are here. So live fully. You're still breathing. So honor their memory by becoming fully alive. Love like you understand time. Forgive like you faced the end. Smile like it's a prayer. Perhaps something like this. You have suffered, yes. But you have also seen clearly. You now know what matters and what doesn't. Use that knowing not to hide from life, but to live it more deeply. Walk gently, love greatly, and remember always. This moment is your gift. Use it well. As someone who has known loss and walked through grief myself, let me offer you this. Take one small step today, just one, that honors your healing. Maybe it's lighting a candle and whispering their name with love. Maybe it's cooking their favorite meal. Maybe it's simply stepping outside, breathing in the air, and saying, "Thank you. I'm still here. I will live well for us both." You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be real. This is not the end of your journey. This is the moment you choose to carry their memory as light, not as weight. This is the moment you stop surviving and start living deeply, softly, fully. Because now you know. That loss can deepen love. That grief can widen wisdom. And that saying goodbye can lead to a more conscious hello with life itself. So take this breath. This day. This one precious moment. And begin again. Namabudhaya. May your sorrow turn into understanding. May your love turn into presence. And may your life, from this moment forward, become the very prayer you once thought you lost. The end of the journey. The beginning of you.